রিভার্বটা কেটে দিন। রিভার্ব
Sahana vavatu sahanau bhunaktu sahaviryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. So we are continuing our discussion on this very intriguing subject, spiritual solutions to contemporary political problems. So, I tried to explain this subject in the light of an ancient Vedic hymn, which presents before us a very spiritual and very harmonious concept of our relationship with nature and with the entire creation. Now, when we talk about spirituality, sometimes we interpret spirituality as something that is problem-free, as a permanent solution to all problems. Spirituality is not a solution to problems. In fact, the very idea that if you pray to God, God will solve our problems is only a very, in fact, in terms of spiritual evolution, in terms of theological ideas, it is a very primitive concept. The real God is one who helps us to go beyond problems and not to avoid or solve problems, because problems are inevitable, they are an inseparable, an integral part of human life. So many of the, if you just watch the very interesting dialogues, discussions and debates taking place between the well-known agnostics of the world and the theologians. Mostly this is happening in Europe and not so much in America. So if you, I can directly point, there is no need to go around the subject. If you, I have not just directly listened to, but I had an occasion, somebody sent a link to me, though I don't normally watch a lot of YouTube or internet things, but a well-known Jesuit father from the state I'm coming from in Kerala, in India, he sent me a link, a debate involving one of the most intelligent, one of the most articulate, and obviously one of the most learned agnostics of the world, Richard Dawkins, and perhaps the most learned Christian theologian of the Anglican world, Dr. Robin Williams, and a great philosopher from Oxford. It was sent to me long ago, so I remember watching it, not for too long, but the whole thing is Oxford Union debate, you may call it. So the subject was, is religion necessary? And what is the nature of evolution, the origin of the universe, the nature of God? So you find most of the time, theologians are the receiving end. Even the most learned theologians have really no answer to some of the questions asked by agnostics and atheists. You know the reason? Because theologians portray God as some kind of a troubleshooter. If you have a problem in your home, if your washing machine is not working properly, you may call a mechanic, you may call an electrician if your electrical system is not working all right. Like that, if there's a problem in this world, there is somebody above the clouds whom you can pray to, and he will come down and solve your problems. This is a very, very primitive idea of God. So for that very reason, the theologians, and I'm sorry to say, the theologians representing all the three Abrahamic religions uniformly are defeated in all such debates. Why this happens? Because they portray God as somebody who offers you a problem-free world, which is an illusion, which is an impossibility. If you portray God as somebody who gives you ideas that help you to face problems in a very intelligent manner, so that the problems are not so acute as you imagined earlier. The problems are within your control. That God gives you power and strength so that you will be able to cope with the problem. The problems are weaker than you, then the problems are no more problems. This is true also in many of the debates taking place around the world, whether the Catholic Church is a force for good or bad. Okay, this question arises. Again, they portray Catholic Church as equal to God. A Catholic Church or Ramakrishna Mission, Vedanta Society, any of these institutions are only approximations to some great spiritual ideas that they are trying to present and portray and teach. These are important things. Whenever devotees call me and they discuss that you should address their problems, so I often tell them, you read Vivekananda's books. And Swami Vivekananda never tells you to pray to him. Swami Vivekananda asks you to find out the solution within your own resources. He is giving you a fishing rod, not giving you a package of fish, which may get rotten in a day or two. But if you are taught how to catch fish, and if you are presented with a fishing rod kit, then he is giving you your livelihood. Similarly, the idea of God as a problem solver or spirituality as a problem-free state of affairs should be, first of all, rejected if you really want to become spiritual. Otherwise, every day, every moment, we'll be cringing before a huge muscular man sitting above the clouds. Man, not women in the Abrahamic traditions, mind you. In Hindu tradition, you can pray to Durga, very powerful feminine archetype. Kali, even still stronger. Now, in Abrahamic religions, it's a very muscular, huge behemoth sitting far above the clouds, detached from you, looking at you, looking sharply, watching your actions with a book, do's and don'ts, with two doors, one opening to hell, the other opening to heaven. Now, its various manifestations are also found in many of the popular Hindu religions. I am not criticizing Abrahamic religion at all. In fact, in popular Hindu religion, this is also true. In all popular religions, this is true. Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, everywhere. The only solace, the only comforting message is, in Hinduism, there is no God who asks you to kill others to please him. That's the greatness of Hinduism. Unlike, not all, some of the Islamic faith systems in the Middle East. So what I mean to say, the definition of God as a big troubleshooter, whom you call upon whenever you have a problem in this world, who will solve all your problems, who promises you a world in which there is zero problem, that is an illusion. On the other hand, Vedanta tells you a shocking truth, It's a bit shocking. You cannot have a problem-free world. You cannot have a problem-free life. It's an important thing. Once you are strengthened by this strong conviction that problem is an integral part of world and life, then you won't be clinging before an all-powerful masculine God praying for a problem-free world. So this is an important thing we have to remember. That's why when I said spirituality is the art of living in this world, facing its problems, and problems involving for our own problem within our own mind in a very intelligent manner. And when that intelligence is called Vedantic outlook. And you know what this is intelligence? A simple thing, very, very simple. Vedanta tells you, this world, your problems, your wealth, and also your poverty, your youth, also your old age and sickness, all these are impermanent entities. That's all. That is simple message of Vedanta. In Shankaracharya's language, when sometimes put into bombastic, it's not really bombastic, it's a very, very simple, but appears to be bombastic. In a society which is a bit averse towards higher philosophy, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. When you read somewhere, when a Pandit speak, you may wonder, what is this to do your own life? It's a simple thing. It tells you that this life, this world, can never be perfect. Which means, when you say this world is imperfect, it only means a very simple thing, it is impermanent. And when you say it is impermanent, it only means it constantly changes. It doesn't remain the same for all time. And that's what we are witnessing the moment you open your eyes. Either to an external world, when you observe the external world, external phenomena, or when you open your eyes to your own mind, emotions and feelings, you find all these are changing. And if things are changing, why should we complain? If we lose our job today, why should we complain? We will get another job tomorrow. If we are poor today, why should we complain? We may become rich tomorrow. Means sometime in future. These are all changing entities. That is the real meaning of Jagat Mithya. Simple common sense. I tell you, Vedanta and spirituality is pure, simple common sense. Then why it eludes our grasp and comprehension? Because we know it so well that we don't know how to make use of it. That's the thing. It is so much a part of our system. Ask any kindergarten child. He will tell you our body cells change all the time. The world changes all the time. The world doesn't remain the same in thousands of years, hundreds of years, millions of years. It can never remain the same. Simple common sense. Then why should we worry? So, this, a muscular, almighty, monotheistic God won't dare to tell you. Because if such a muscular, monotheistic God tells you, then you stop praying to Him. But if you can really tell people, then, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, Dr. Rowan Williams won't be defeated in a debate with Richard Dawkins. And also in a debate which discusses whether the Catholic Church is a force for good or not, the theologians will not be defeated, because theologians are trying to portray before you a problem-free world in which you can rely upon God to come to your rescue when you don't have a parking place, when your health fails, when you don't have money. You pray to this God and He gives you wealth, youth, everything. God never gives you that. A God who gives you wealth and health alone is not a real God. A God who gives you the common sense, the wisdom that helps you to solve your own problems depending upon your own resources. That's what I've been saying till now. If you portray such a God, then the agnostics and atheists will have no answer. So that's why I mentioned when we discuss the subject, spiritual solutions to contemporary problems. Spirituality is not a problem solver. But spirituality is the only thing that can solve your problems if you take another perspective. Spirituality is not a troubleshooter. God is not a troubleshooter. Spirituality will not solve problems if you think the spirituality means the art of living in a problem-free world, which really doesn't and cannot exist. On the other hand, if you interpret spirituality as simple common sense that tells you this world as such is impermanent, to expect permanence in this world is irrational. Therefore, you have the resources within your own heart. And spirituality is going beyond problems and their absence, pain and pleasure, the ability to look upon pain and pleasure, a problem-free world and a problem-full world with the same equanimity of mind. When spirituality is defined as the simple common sense, then there is no greater problem solver than spirituality. So the real meaning of spirituality. That's why I was not criticizing popular Hinduism or the Abrahamic concepts of a monotheistic, all-powerful, masculine God. Not at all. What I was saying is, it is just an illusion. Just think of a strong man sitting above the clouds, creating this world, giving them all the problems, including the COVID-19. And then forcing you to pray to him for solutions. Remember, if you have any doubt, Swami Vivekananda himself was in this predicament in one important occasion in his life. If you read Vivekananda's life, why Vivekananda is so appealing. He observes all these ideas which may appear to be anarchist or radical for a traditional churchgoer or a traditional temple goer. Vivekananda was, he was a student of Scottish Church College. So he was steeped in Hume, J.S. Mill, Spinoza. Of course, Eckhart had not reborn at that time. Eckhart became relevant and well-known only after Rudolf Otto's time. So, but Vivekananda was well-versed in Greek philosophical systems, utilitarian systems, humanism, Kant, Hegel, and so on. So, at that time, he was almost 17 or 18 years old. 18 or less than between 18 and 19. And his father passed away. He came from a very rich family, but his father passed away. And they had a huge ancestral property. But distant relatives began to exploit the situation, try to take their property. And he was the eldest son of the family, with a pious mother and sisters. One of them even committed suicide later on. So remember, this great spiritual person was not living a very comfortable life. He had seen and he had gone through all the pains, all the toils, all the tears, all the problems of human life. So one day he was walking through the streets of Calcutta. You know very well, and we all know very well, that he was perhaps the most brilliant student that Calcutta University had ever produced. The most brilliant student. The most distinguished student of the university, the old university, was Swami Vivekananda. But he failed to get a clerk's job in any of the offices in the city. It was the biggest city. After London, it was the biggest city in British Empire at that time. This must have happened in the year maybe 1870s, or 1880, or 81, or 82, or maybe 80, around that time. The most brilliant student of the university could not get a clerk's job. or even a school teacher's job. And he tried. And then he sat under the Octolani monument. General Octolani was one of the military officers of the East India Company. Of course, most of the soldiers were Indians who fought in the first independence struggle in 1857. So Octolani was an important military figure of those times. But by the time I think he had passed away. There's a monument in his name. It's called Octolani Monument, which still stands there. The same name. He sat under that monument, a tower, and was thinking, if I could have created a better world than this. What kind of God is the one who created a world like this? A question that many of our modern agnostics and atheists are asking, involving maybe Richard Dawkins. This question was asked by Vivekananda as some kind of inner dialogue. Even I could have created a better world. Of course, that Vivekananda later became a new interpreter of a new concept of spirituality to Western world. Spirituality is not turning to God to solve your problems. Spirituality is not expecting a God to create everything happy and present in this world. When you open the tap, you get water. When you pray to God, you get a new job. It doesn't happen like that. Such a God is not a very wise or intelligent or useful God. A God to be useful should be somebody who should give you a fishing rod, not a packet of fish, which I mentioned earlier. It may get rotten in a day or two. He should teach you how to catch fish with a fishing rod kit. That's the real intelligent God. That Vivekananda later became the interpreter, exponent of spirituality, which I described till now. So it's not my own. It comes from the Upanishads. It comes from Shankaracharya. And in modern times, it came from Swami Vivekananda. Spirituality is finding your own inner resources to solve your problems. It is actually getting a fishing rod and learning how to catch fish and not going to Trader Joe's and buying a small packet of fish. That won't solve your problems. So that's why I said spirituality is not expecting this world to be ever problem-free, but rather welcoming a world of problems and then intelligently dealing with this world of problems in a way that you become stronger mentally and spiritually, and your problems become weaker and weaker. Then problems are no more problems. Problems are problems only when problems are stronger than us. When we become internally, spiritually stronger, problems are no more problems. So this is an important thing to understand. Now, in modern times, the greatest challenge is very simple. We want to judge everything on the basis of short-term result. A kind of crude, crass, mindless pragmatism, utilitarianism. Everything, whether in business or in life, in all these matters, we should get quick results. Anything that doesn't bring a few more additional dollars is worthless. Which is as stupid as to expect that a packet of fish will remain the same for all time. And remember, I'm giving this, I'm taking the same example which I discussed earlier. So I recently, long ago, some years ago, I found one important quotation from no less a leader than Martin Luther King. He's talking about education. And he's talking about the crude, mindless tyranny of utilitarian values and the tyranny of the cult of efficiency. That's what he's talking about. Those words should have come from a great Indian sage of distant past. But what I'm going to read now is from Martin Luther King for one of his own talks, The Purpose of Education. In his many other similar writings, he criticizes the cult of not only efficiency, but a cult of pragmatism, which in real terms means you do something, you want a result, and the result should be empirically useful to you. If it is not useful to you, then it's of no use. Even when I discuss with some of my own friends in the Bay Area, who are our own devotees, they will often, but in what way is it going to help us? The real answer is, it is going to help you only when you stop and asking this question. It becomes useful to us only when we stop thinking of its practical usefulness. Because we value everything on the basis of practical utility, which is not wrong, but it's childish and primitive from a spiritual standpoint. So I come to this well-known statement by Martin Luther King. He says, the function of education, therefore, is to teach one to think intensely and to think critically and efficiently, in the true sense. But education which stops with efficiency as such may prove to be the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason but with no morals. This is Martin Luther King, the purpose of education. What it means, it's efficiency. This long ago, maybe 1940s, late 1940s. What it means is, so when we talk about the cult of efficiency, the curse of utilitarian values, and the curse of the tyranny of science and technology, which actually is responsible for this emergence of the worship of dollar, worship of success in its most empirical, in its crudest sense. Again, that is linked to our primitive idea of spirituality and God. God is somebody who is stronger than us, more powerful. So he will come and help you where you can't help yourself. That's a very primitive concept. God is the real spiritual potential that resides within all of us. Actually, Swami Vivekananda says, of course he is putting this idea from the Upanishads, Shankaracharya's Bhasha. He says, when you pray to God, and when you find, when you get back to your home, and you find, you may feel that many of the problems are solved. This is not myth. It really happens. You may go to a church, a synagogue, Buddhist temple, or Hindu temple, anywhere. This is the experience of many devotees. There is no denying this reality. When you pray to God, your problems are solved. But you know the spiritual psychology behind it, according to Mantra Shastra, the science of mantras, the science of puja. And Shankaracharya has written apparently the most extensive description of puja, the great philosopher who taught us to look beyond images and temples and churches for God. If you want to reach God, look beyond temples and beyond books and look towards your own inner self. The same philosopher wrote the most extensive, the most elaborate poetry describing 64 elements, 64 stages in the art of worship in Hindu tradition. If you go to any of the biggest of temples in India or in the Bay Area, you will find a maximum of 16 stages, 16 elements of this worship. But Shankaracharya's, the particular poem is called Chadushashti Upajara Puja Stotram. Stotram means hymn. It means a hymn that describes 64 elements of elaborate puja. And then he says, you know, when you do this puja, it is not that God comes and gives you a check for when you are poor, or a God sends you an appointment order when you have no job. What happens, you know, by this worship, you are invoking, you are invigorating, you are bringing into life a spiritual potency that is already within you. When you meditate, what happens is, our inner power is invoked. It comes alive. Not when you pray in a church or a temple, God is not giving you in a packet, a checkbook. If you don't have money, so give me money. No, not at all. Rather, God is actually, the prayer itself works as an instrument for invoking, for bringing into life your own inner potential. For that, meditation, puja, worship, Sabbath, confession, all these are different tools, different instruments. That's why in Confessions, Augustine says, every true confession is a kind of spiritual rebirth. It is not a license renewal program. Every true confession can bring the Christ already within you. In the city of God, you can see. So what I mean to say, Hindu tradition also, when you pray to God, God is not coming and helping you. God, that prayer, the art of prayer, helps you to open your own inner potential. Many of the inner resources which remain dormant before meditation, these resources are enlivened, they are brought back to life. And then we find prayer works, meditation works, puja also, in all spiritual traditions. Any spiritual endeavor, any person born in any tradition, if he is pure, sincere, and if he prays, this happens, but this happens because his prayer brings the potential already within you, within us. That's why Atman is within everyone. Every spiritual discipline is only an occasion, is an instrument, is a way, is a method to bring this back to our own life, to the level of practical utility. So I was talking about this tyranny of utilitarian values and pragmatism. Now, in modern times, one of the biggest problems we are facing is that we forget this important message. And that's why in some of our Upanishads, like Kathopanishad, there's a statement, Vijnana Saradhiryastu. So frequently, in this life, life is compared to a journey in a chariot in this particular book. Life is nothing but a journey in a chariot. Atmanam ridhinam vidhi sharira mridhamevacha buddhintu saradhim vidhi mana pragrahamevacha. So it says, Indriyani paranyahu vishyansteshu gocharan atmendriya manoyuktam bhokta ityahu manishinaka. Human life is compared to a journey in a chariot. We are the travelers, and the horses are senses. The world is the path, the road that we have to take. Mind is the reins by which we control the horses. And who is the rider? The one who drives the chariot? Our own intellect or intelligence. If intelligence is fully aware of its responsibility, then it will be able to control the horses properly. So remember, we are the travelers. Our intellect or intelligence is the driver of the chariot. The horses are the senses, our eyes, our ears, our senses of perception, senses of action. All these are the instruments with which we interact with this world. Now, if you allow the horses complete freedom, if you give them complete freedom to decide where to go, then instead of reaching our destination, they may reach somewhere else. We may even reach the hospital ICU. If the horses are not properly controlled, they may take us over a precipice. So the intellect, the driver, should be aware of its duty. Now suppose you follow this cult of utilitarian values. Then the goal dominates all your actions and decisions, not the road. If the horses only look at the destination without taking care, and if the driver doesn't take proper care to make sure that the horses are moving properly through the road without hitting a rock or anything, if the driver is not fully aware of his duty, not fully alert, then what happens is the horses may take you in the opposite direction. It can be a disaster. Therefore, the driver should be endowed with vijnanam. It means refined intellect, refined intelligence. That's why, of course, Martin Luther doesn't say that, but going further, we can say in Hindu tradition, there's an evolution in the educational process. Information is the most primitive, the most elementary part of education. Knowledge is more refined than information. Scholarship also may be a kind of organized knowledge. But there is something that goes beyond all this wisdom. It may be called intuition. The wisdom and intuition is not a result of science and technology. Science and technology, efficiency, as defined by Martin Luther, that kind of efficiency cannot give us wisdom. You know what he says? He says, the most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but with no moral values. You can Genghis Khan, Hitler, hundred many. Even today, in today's world, if you open the newspapers, you can see their friends and cousins living in 21st century. So, but they are not wanting in efficiency. Even some of the hardened criminals, jihadists, they are not illiterate people. They are among the best educated people of that local society. That's why during the criminologists and the interrogators found it very difficult to break them, to make them speak, because they are so well-hardened criminals, so well-educated. They are trained, they know how to face interrogation. So you can't do anything about them. So there is no lack of efficiency, no lack of even education. Sometimes people will tell you modern education can bring heaven. Doesn't and never happens. One important example, look around the world. Some of the most dangerous people are the best educated people with highly developed computer skills to boot. So can we say that education can solve the problems, especially secular education? That's why education, going beyond information, knowledge and scholarship, wisdom or intuition, kind of refined intelligence. It's called wisdom or intuition it may be called a kind of refined intelligence. That's in Sanskrit it's called metha. In the Yajurveda tradition there is a hymn, Metha Devi Jushamana Aga Vishwajit Bhadra Sumanasya. It means metha is a Sanskrit word. So there, this higher refined intelligence, intuition is elevated to the status of mother goddess. So every day, a Vedic student is supposed to pray, turning to the east, "O Divine Mother, give me the intuition, the pure intelligence, the pure intellect that helps me to make proper use of what I learn and which will prevent me from making improper use of what I learned." So that's why, as I mentioned, going beyond intelligence as understood in modern education psychology, going towards a higher concept of refined intelligence. So that refined intelligence should be the driver of the chariot of our life. Then we reach a destination. I can give many examples. Well, I hope I won't be misunderstood. Let us think of many of the modern feminist ideas called feminist assertiveness. Now, many of Vedantic books you find the idea that The most sublime aspect of human personality is the personality of a loving mother. So, the most sublime human relationship is the relationship which is almost holy and sacred and sanctified between child and mother. All other relationships are important, good, but this is almost equated with spirituality. That's why you find in Hindu pantheon, you find so many feminine archetypes. You can find. In ancient India, whenever students left their Vedic school after 12 years of Vedic education, when they are about to depart, going back to their homes to start their life as husbands or wife, whatever roles they may have in society or family, the first instruction given is Matru Devo Bhava. Let your mother be as venerable, as honorable to you as God Himself. That's a literal translation. Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Aditi Devo Bhava. It goes 4 instructions related to the sanctity and sacredness of family life. I mean, your parents, your mother and father, your teacher, and guest, the guest who comes to your home, should be treated with respect. A simple matter. But the most telling example, instruction is Matru Devo Bhava. Now, let's say the problem of modern education devoid of a spiritual content. If we can think of this higher ideal and infuse it with these modern feminist ideas, then actually men can never be the equal of woman. The father can never be the equal of mother. There is a statement in Manusmriti. It's Upadhyaya Dashacharya Acharya to Sadampida. Then it says the Gauravena Adirichate. So Upadhyaya Dashacharya. It's an interesting description. In a college, for example, Upadhyaya, guest teacher, who comes and gives lessons once a while. He is called Upadhyaya, the guest lecturer, somebody who is invited. He should be respected, but more respect should be given to a professor, who is the head of your department. Acharya to Shatampida. So, a head of the department is equal to the Acharya. And your father is more important than the professor. And your mother is 1,000 times, Sagasrayana Adirichade. Your mother is 1,000 times more respectable than your father. So this is an interesting example. So the entire human life, think of this in a college or a school. You have a guest lecturer. It's very interesting. Upadhyaya Dashacharya, Acharya to Shadampida, Sahasrena Adhigam Madhu, Gauravena Adirichade. Ascending order of respect, importance, and acceptance in society and family. The least respectable person should be respected is maybe somebody may come to your college to give a lecture on some specific subject on some special occasion. He should be respected. But more respect, 10 times, you should respect your professor 10 times as much as you respect a guest lecturer. And then, Acharya to Shatambida, Shatam means 100. You should respect your father. Pida means father, similar to Latin. Pida means father. You should respect your father 100 times as much as you respect your professor. Then, Sagasrayana Adhigam Matuhu. And the respect that should be given to mother, Sagasra means 1,000. So, your mother is 1,000 times, the respect you should give to your mother is 1,000 times as much as the respect you give to father. Now, it's very interesting. Maybe this is ancient poets speak in metaphors. So these are all metaphors. What it means is the sanctity and sacredness. Now, really speaking, a mother's relationship with children is similar, irresistible, almost a spiritual bondage and relationship. Some of these great ideas are very, very important, because what happens in modern times, sometimes we become victims of science and technology instead of making use of the powers and blessings and gifts of science and technology. We become praise, we become instruments, we become tools in the hands of science and technology. Of course, I have included political word, which I don't really directly want to discuss. This is not a real platform for that. But it means to say, but many of these problems can be solved. At least we'll be able to cope with these problems more intelligently if we keep some of these ideas. For example, the cult of efficiency. Efficiency is important. Without efficiency, you would not be able to solve the problems of the world. Absolutely no. Without efficiency and science and technology, you will not be able to bring hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. It happened in many parts of the world during the last few years. So even in India, white revolution, green revolution, the examples of the marvels of science and technology. In China, as I mentioned in my last session, in a few years, they brought 600 millions of people out of poverty, but at terrible human cost. That's another part which is not part of our discussion. But it means to say, science and technology are important. Efficiency is important. Again, I kind of emphasis on utility is important, but utilitarianism should not become the dictator of our life. Then, what happens, as Martin Luther said, we'll become efficient, but we'll become very efficient, very effective rascals. That also can happen if we don't bring in this element of spirituality. Some of the worst villains and scourges of humanity were also among the most efficient human beings. I don't want to give examples. Everywhere through history, all the way from Genghis Khan to our own times, you can see. They were not lacking in efficiency or proficiency or knowledge or even intelligence and intellect. But then it was not refined intellect. So one important point is spirituality as wisdom, spirituality as common sense that helps us to exert this power of self-restraint while using the gifts of science and technology. And going beyond utilitarian values. Because if utility is the only criterion, then we won't have the mental health to make use of what we achieve. A billionaire who have focused on utility and efficiency alone, he gets old and he can't eat anything. Mentally he's a wreck, physically he's a wreck. What's the use of, can you call such a life a successful life? We often put emphasis on success. But success in its narrowest sense means getting a high grade, a good job, making plenty of money. But then beyond that, we forget what happens going to a lunatic asylum or taking 4 pills every day to get 4 hours of sleep. You can imagine the large percentage of people in many of the advanced industrialized countries suffering from depression and many kinds of problems, allied problems. So that's the problem of putting too much emphasis on efficiency and utility. Utility is important. We should be practical. Everything should be practical utility and value. But then that alone should not be the criterion. This is important. So thank you. I have tried to just put a few thoughts before you, and you are most welcome to ask questions during interaction. Thank you. Namaskar. Now we have some very important announcements. There will be no lecture on next Sunday because of a special program on Saturday, April 29th. So remember, Shanti Ashrama pilgrimage. In fact, Vedanta work in America actually started at Shanti Ashrama in the year 1900. One of Vivekananda's American devotees in New York donated him a piece of land in San Antonio Valley, about 166 acres, and one of his brother disciples came and started a Hindu monastery in 1900. Number of Americans, remember 1900, a number of Americans from different parts of Bay Area and elsewhere went there, and they studied scriptures, they practiced meditation, and this went on for more than 2 years. Then there's Swami Tattwamananda left for India, and that monastery continued till in the middle of 1950s. There was a huge fire which consumed many of the buildings except the one which is used as a shrine building, which still stands there in San Antonio Valley. So in memory of that glorious heritage of the place, we celebrate, every year we celebrate this Shanti Ashrama pilgrimage. This year it falls on April 29th, Saturday. I can give the example. Is of special significance to us. Shanti Ashrama is of special significance to us. So you can get information from the flyer, but those of you who want to participate, please remember the program starts at 11 a.m. Meditation, worship, devotional music during puja, and flower offerings, and then a short lecture program, very short, contemplation in spiritual life is a subject. Some visiting Swamis and others will give short talks on this subject, contemplation in spiritual life, and then there will be music, tour of the ashrama. So please remember, you may wish to bring a pillow or a chair to sit on. This is about less than 100 miles away from here. You can get an idea of the route, the map from these flyers which are kept there. You can also call 415-922-2323 our office. They will provide further information. You can bring some pillow or chair, a sun hat, a warm jacket. It could be cold. The weather can be quite variable. And your lunch and drinking water. Coffee, tea, juice and dessert will be provided at lunch time. So this is an important part of our program, Shanti Ashrama Pilgrimage, April 29th, Saturday, from 11 a.m. in the morning till it will be over before 5 o'clock. Thank you. And then on Sunday evenings, including today, there is an online class at 6 p.m. The subject is the foundational text of Indian philosophy. The Zoom and YouTube links are available on our website's homepage as well as in the monthly email bulletin. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. in this auditorium. Special announcement. Our annual pilgrimage to Shanti Ashrama will take place next Saturday, April 29th. So please remember this, I already mentioned to you. Some guest Swamis will be coming from other Vedanta societies. There will be discussion on this subject, contemplation in spiritual life. Your cooperation in wearing a mask is greatly appreciated. If you would like to make an offering, a collection plate will be available on the cart at the door as you exit. There is also a mounted offering box near the auditorium door in the foyer. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of our services. After the lecture, there will be a Q&A, question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall nearby, and you are most welcome to discuss the subject that we discussed this morning. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Rama Krishna Pranamastu.